agenda.
What's that? Okay. We'll call to order the City Infrastructure Committee meeting. Roll call.
Councilor Ensel?
Here.
Councilor Kelly?
Here.
Okay. At this point, we will entertain any comments from the public. Any comments they may have regarding any issue having to do with city infrastructure?
I just had one question. The engineering for that dewatering upgrade seems to be as much as the upgrade is going to cost. Is advertising that? Engineering services? That
we will be, it's on the agenda. We can ask it during that time. Yeah.
That's the question on that.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing, which isn't exactly related to this, but the crosswalk, walk sign on Margaret Street in Carnelian. I noticed that the other day I came through there and I double checked it. When the walk sign is on, the east and westbound traffic has green light. I always wondered why the cars would toot at me and I'd like point at the sign. In fact, it's giving you a walk sign at the same time as the cars have a green light to come through it, so.
Okay.
How should we look at it?
I believe that is MLD that
I'll ask.
deals with. Thank you, Jeff, for bringing that to our attention. Any other public comments? Okay. Moving on. Reports from department representatives, discussion with counselors. No report? No report. Okay, some agenda items that we have been brought to our attention. Request from Public Works to be authorized to prepare and submit necessary plans, documents, permits to the appropriate agencies for the approval of a small boat marina located at Wilcox Dock. I believe, Andrew, you have a
we'll do a
PowerPoint
presentation about a proposed small boat marina at Wilcox Dock. So a few benefits of placing a marina at Wilcox Docks. Utilizes one of the city's recreational sources to provide a marina for city residents. Has great protection from the prevailing south and southwest winds, and water depth in this area is anywhere from 7 to 15 feet. It'll help clean up and draw more attention to an underutilized healthy lung trail. This is the existing conditions plan of the Wilcox Dock. Basically, you're looking at a wind fetch of 1.9 miles from an easterly wind. The picture you see up here is from the southerly wind, which would be the greatest wind you would get from here. At a 20-mile-an-hour wind, basically you're seeing no waves in that area, so it lends itself to be a good spot to put a small boat marina. So a little bit of the history of the docks that we obtained from GE. They were built in 2009 for the sediment remediation project of the Hudson River PCB Superfund site. The docks were used to dock boats for transporting employees and equipment to and from a centralized drop-off and pickup site. These docks, nor the boats that were used, ever came into contact with any type of contamination, so they were free, and I do believe that we were given certification from GE that the docks were free of contaminants. They were, phase 2 came to completion in the fall of 2015. We acquired them in 2016. We were actually approached by the New York State Canal Corporation about the availability of the dock system. They believed that Wilcox Dock would be a good place to put them for a small boat marina. We purchased the dock system with donated funds, and then in the early spring of 2017, we had the docks transported from Glens Falls, placed in the Brownsfield for a total of $23,000. Basically, the the two layouts you see here, this is if you were to take the docks based on how they were set up in the Hudson River with no modifications to them. The one on the north has a couple issues with it. There's no protection from the southeast wind up on this section of docks up here. It interferes with the commercial use of Wilcox Dock, which I believe is actually going to be used for quite a bit longer. And then we get a lot of complaints about people wanting to fish from that side of the dock. The southerly side down here, when the water level drops, the docks would end up being caught up on the shore. So it wouldn't be a good place to have those with the current layout. So basically by taking those docks and modifying two brackets here and here, they allow us to push the wings out and use these in this location, and it would gain us 33 boats, boat slips. Now if we went a step further and we actually removed docks 1201 and 1202 here and here, and we swapped this 30-foot gangplank with this 60-foot gangplank, it allows us to push the boats out further into the water, and it allows us to add more slips along the back of the docks. What this does is this gains us 47 slips instead of the original 33 slips. It doesn't interfere with the commercial use up in here, nor does it interfere with any of the fishing off of the pier. So we would like to upgrade the Healthy Lung Trail, and this would start by DPW going out and doing some cleanup of the Healthy Lung Trail. We would upgrade the pathway to a hard surface to comply with any ADA standards. And we would like to turn the end of the walk path into a picnic area. As you can see down here in this lower right-hand corner picture, it lends itself to some nice views on a nice day. So. Facilities and utilities for the marina. Electrical is something that we could do in the future. What we would do is we would actually install conduit when we upgrade the walk path. That way MLD could come in and just run any wires that they needed to when we decided to run the electrical. Water, there's currently no water down at Wilcox Dock. There's no plan at this time to run water for the facility. Sanitary facilities, most of these boats are about 26 feet and under, so they do not have sanitary facilities on the vessels. The ones that do would be able to drive over to Dock Street Marina and use the pump out that we have over there. And currently the city rents porta-johns that we place at Wilcox, so those could be also utilized by boaters. Winter storage, the layout that we are proposing would not have to be moved, unlike the docks that we place out at Wilcox or at Dock Street. So we could leave them right where they are, so there's no maintenance when it comes to that. We buy some bubblers to put those, keep the ice away from them, and the location would not conflict with the storage of the Dock Street docks. Quick little business model that we put together. You got your initial startup costs. The concrete block anchors, we would require 10 of those. We actually purchased some concrete blocks when Concrete Building Supply closed. We went through and had purchased a whole bunch of stuff, so we got everything pretty cheap. So we have those in-house, so there would be no cost there. Anchoring chain, you're looking at about $1,500 for the amount of chain we would need. The brackets that it would require for this setup, we would make in-house at DPW. Bubblers for winter storage, you're looking at about $2,800 for 4 of those. Paving the access path, you're looking at probably about $5,000. We've got a couple ideas. We might be able to make that a little bit cheaper going with concrete instead of paving. Electrical upgrades, those could be done at a later date. MLD gave me a price of around $15,000 to run electrical for 220. Those would be to actually hook up the lighting system that came with the docks. And you could hook up lights along the pathway. Security camera system, obviously it's kind of out at the point, so we'd like to have some kind of security out there, so if somebody does have an issue, we can pull camera footage. As far as cleanup of the Healthy Lung Trail, We're gonna look into some grants or some funding to help with the cleanup, to cover some of that cost. So basically, overall cost, and this cost includes the $23,000 that it cost us to have the dock shipped up from Glens Falls. Initial startup cost is about $34,000.
That includes the 23 that we've already paid.
Yep, the 23 that we've already paid. So based on about $1,000 a slip, you're looking at a yearly revenue of $47,000. We built in a $2,500 yearly maintenance cost, so you're looking at about a $44,500 profit. And then right below that, you can see where after the first year, you're making about $10,000 after these docks have been in the water based on your initial startup costs. After 5 years, you've put aside $188,000, and after 10 years, it's $410,000.
Andrew, just a couple of questions, and certainly I think some of these things would have to be worked out. But you mentioned a security system. We wouldn't have really an attendant.
Right, so unlike our Dock Street marina where we have nav tours actually oversee the facility, this would be independent, but we would have our marina maintenance worker go and check on the docks as he does already every day. And then anybody could contact us with any complaints or anything.
Okay.
I have a few questions. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I just had a few questions.
Yeah.
So is this needing approval from the Army Corps?
Yeah, so what this is I have to fill out permits to go to Army Corps, DEC, OGS, the City Planning Board, SHPO, and the County Planning Board.
Okay, and then how many of these docks that we acquired from Glens Falls would be used in this plan?
All of them but 2. So basically, we would be pulling 2 out of the system, and those 2 we're actually going to be using at the Dock Street facility. With the settlement agreement with Plattsburgh Boat Basin, we had to change a few things with our pump out dock. So we're actually going to utilize those 2 docks for our pump out docks over at Dock Street.
And why is it that these docks wouldn't be better suited at Dock Street?
These docks work independently. There would be a considerable amount of cost as far as engineering to try to get them to work with that. And you've also got, in some areas, you have a little bit of a water depth issue off of the west side. And we can't go any further to the south because of the settlement agreement.
Okay.
And you get into the wave, because we can't put the wave attenuator in based on the settlement agreement, those docks would be exposed to waves from southeast prevailing wind.
And does the settlement agreement, does that change the original scope of, I think, the 3 phases of expansion for Dock Street?
Yes. So basically what the settlement agreement says is that you cannot do phase 2 and phase 3 of the original scope.
Period? Really?
Oh.
Yes.
Oh,
I didn't know
I
that.
did not know that either.
I
told you.
Yeah, you did.
I don't have it with me, but it specifically spelled out in the settlement agreement that you cannot do phase 2 and phase 3.
Are you all set? Is that?
Yes. Thank
Now,
you.
that's not to say that you can't modify it and resubmit it, but as it sat, with basically the wave attenuator, the way it came out, we have to maintain a 90-foot buffer off of the property line, the coral line.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just a couple of other questions, Andrew, and they may be somewhat premature, but how would we handle if, say we have the 47 slips and there's no attendant, as far as monitor, that you don't have,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term, squatters there taking
Yeah.
slips up that haven't paid?
That might be something that the marina maintenance worker can handle.
Yeah, maybe you
Alright.
can chain them off.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he's there, he's there a
Yeah,
couple
just-
times a day. He knows the boats that are supposed to be in those slips. If he saw a boat that wasn't supposed to be there, then he would bring that to our attention.
The other thing I'd like to see, because it is technically small boats, what I'd like to see is that if we do go forward with this project, that boat owners in the city of Plattsburgh have a priority, first priority to getting the slips, and maybe, you know, I know that your initial estimates were $1,000 a slip. Maybe city residents at up to a certain date, say May 1st or whatever, might be able to get the slip at $900, and then if the slips aren't all taken, then open them up to residents or boat owners outside of the city.
Yep.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's one of the complaints that we get, is there wasn't actually a whole lot of room for city residents to use the city marina. So when people start asking about these docks, the number one question is, when are you putting them in? The number two question is, are they gonna be available for city residents?
Well, and, you know, why couldn't we develop that kind of policy for the other marina as well? I mean, if that's
Some
what
of
we
it,
feel would be best, in the best interest of the public.
I think that, if I'm not mistaken, these docks are more suited for smaller craft.
For small craft,
Yes,
that's
yeah,
true.
these are for
Up to
small
26
boats,
feet.
I believe 26 feet.
There has to be 26 feet, at least.
No, the minimum, maximum of
Maximum.
26.
Maximum,
Right.
okay.
I guess I'm sorry, so there's no configuration that can be made where these would work at Dock Street? Where they're monitored, where they're,
We've reached out to the dock manufacturers. What's going on here, Council, is the way that they were purchased and configured, it lends itself to this site perfectly, without very much investment on our end. You can almost make it work anywhere if you have enough money. What we tried to put forth is a plan where we minimum cash outlay and maximum return.
what was the cost to retrofit them to the docks that we have at Dock Street?
We don't have that price yet because they want to charge us. They gave us a budgetary number. We've reached out to them several times, but it's, if we were to go back to the manufacturer out of Montreal, I think it's Montreal, right? Structure Marine.
Yeah, Structure Marine Montreal.
They're gonna want us to pay them to do this.
To give the plan?
Yes.
So I guess in looking at the agenda item, essentially, what you're asking for the council is to give you initial approval to begin the exploration as far as the permitting and so on, seeking the permit?
And what's the cost associated with all of that?
That I'm not sure of yet. I have to get into the permitting process, but yeah, basically what I'm asking for is you guys to approve for me to fill out the permits and submit the permits to the correct agencies.
I guess it just, if, I'd like to see the number, you know, obviously how much all of that's gonna cost. And then, if it's a number that's, you know, of any substance, then I'd wanna check to see what it would cost to retrofit them to work at Dock Street, where they would be potentially more secure, and it would be a part of the initial plan that we had that the state wanted us to follow through with.
One of the things you want to take into consideration with these docks, and you pointed out in the presentation, is the more we handle these docks, when I say handle, take them in, take them out, move them around, the more potential there is of damage.
So are these docks that were designed to stay in the water all the time?
These docks were designed to go on a river, but they were purchased for a project, they have life expectancy to exceed basically GE's abandoned. But what you'll find is, over time, if we keep taking these docks apart, dragging them over, and winter storing them, taking them out, it's gonna be under the wear and tear. If we were able to winter store them in place, and use them in place, that's much more benefit.
So the docks that we have at Dock Street are engineered differently, where they're.
They were engineered to be put there, but we physically have to disassemble them every year, take the fingers out there, ferry the main sections over to Wilcox, and winter storm them in water, because they're so large, that you would have to hire a big crane to pull them out. And they have power and water and everything else, so basically, you have to chop it apart.
Would there be any guess or estimate as to what the cost would be associated with the permitting process?
I I can't answer that at this point. I haven't gotten into doing any of the permitting yet, so I'm not sure. I don't want to give you a number, you know, yeah.
Andrew, I have a question.
Sure.
Well, first off, excellent presentation, and it's easy to see a lot of thought went into that, so thank you very much, guys, for doing that. But can you tell me about what the depth of the water would be in that part of the?
Yeah, so you're looking, obviously the lake elevation fluctuates throughout the year. In that area, we're looking anywhere between 7 and 15 feet of water depth.
Right in that area,
Yes.
7 to 15.
Yep.
So you can get almost any smaller boat in
Yes.
and out of there.
Yep.
And then one thing that I've noticed is that when the lake's high, the Wilcox dock floods, and it's maybe as much as half underwater.
Yep.
And then this little spit of land that you're gonna work off, does it flood also?
That was my next question.
It does a little bit. If you look at the dark dotted line here, that's your mean high water, which is 99.8. So basically, whenever the water is at 99.8, this section of the trail is underwater. This section of the trail is underwater. Now, I'm not sure what the lake elevation is today. I was out there today and it actually wasn't that bad. I believe the water elevation is above 99.8 at the moment.
If it goes above that stage, is it even accessible?
None of Wilcox Dock is accessible at that point. If it, well, I say that when you get into 10, I think it was 101. We had a couple of years ago where Wilcox was completely under.
There won't be any boating going on during the
Right.
Yeah.
high water.
Yeah.
Right.
anyway.
I guess one other question is, did you look at the other side of Wilcox Dock? as a
Yes.
possibility?
So there was.
Isn't that considerably more shallow on that side?
It is not. It's actually probably right about the same,
Oh,
about
okay.
15 feet, just because they used to bring the bigger boats in there. I forget the name of the boat. The Juniper. They used to dock the Juniper in there.
Oh.
So that is, I do believe they actually had dredged it for the purpose of parking the Juniper there.
Okay.
So we did look into a couple different layouts over there. A couple issues with them was the protection from the southwest wind. The commercial use of Wilcox Dock that's currently going on with the potential for further use of that area. And then we get a lot of complaints about people who like fishing over there versus actually fishing on the other side. So we felt that putting them on the other side would be a better fit, and it would help clean up that healthy lung trail that's kind of
Right.
underutilized.
So that's a good idea. But I mean, I guess the north side of the Wilcox Dock,
By the DEC boat launch. So on this side over here, it's kind of cut off. I mean, so right here you've got the boat launch.
yes.
So we had looked at actually putting them up on this side. One of the main concerns we had is with people launching their boats there, a lot of them were going to pull into slips and tie off there and use those docks.
Oh, okay.
So if people are paying for those docks, we really didn't want to have, other boats pulling up.
That
into
makes
those.
sense. Okay.
Andrew, are there any ADA issues?
Well, that's what we looked into, upgrading the path to make it ADA accessible to what would be the proposed area. As far as the actual Wilcox dock itself, I don't believe so, but I'm not positive on that.
And then people would park in the parking lot, and
Yes.
then it's a walk.
Yep, so it's
There.
about a 600-foot walk to take you to the dock. Now, if you actually go out and go to some of the local marinas, that is just about what you're gonna get.
Well,
Because of,
we would need like carts and things.
yeah,
to
well, a lot of
assist.
people, what they're gonna do is they're either going to get in their boat and pull it around to this side. There is a set of eco docks that we put out. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna pull their boat up to there, unload here, or, have a cart and walk it down the pathway.
But we didn't have carts or anything in any of the estimates for purchase.
No,
I wouldn't suggest, to keep costs down, these are, this is a different scale. We're not talking about the same clientele who that dock. Young people that come in there and they roll the cooler out and carry a backpack down. They're unattended. I think we want to try to keep it for the sake of not spending money, utilize the resource we have.
I think it would also help utilize the healthy trail.
Well, I mean, and the fact is, we're trying to provide a place for kind of like your average boater, not your luxury boater, to have a place to park.
Pontoon boats and fishing.
Yeah, yeah.
And clean up a long trail for other reasons, so.
Yes. So I guess I'd like to ask, do we want to, as a committee, decide on this separately before we move on to some of the other issues? Or,
I'd like to see the operating costs and, you know, to go through the Army Corps process, you know, what's that gonna cost us? But I'd like to see that before I decide.
Just to chime in, I came into this conversation late, but I think the bulk of those permitting costs will be on engineering drawings. So if we can get around from that, the actual filing fees are not gonna be more than hundreds of dollars, if that.
Right, but the engineering could be,
But we may be able to avoid that based on what's
I
already created.
more than likely I can take the plans that we have here and submit them.
One thing you could do is have a caveat, if it could be done below a certain
Certain.
threshold, would you like to have them then proceed? And it gives them the latitude to continue on this discussion.
because I believe, again, that all you're really looking for is for the actual permitting at this point to begin the exploration of the permitting process.
Yeah, I mean, I can get the permits based on the plan that's submitted. It doesn't mean that we have to put them in water. If you guys decide to make a change, we can modify that permit at the time and then resubmit it. But at least if we get the ball rolling, they're aware of what we want to do, and then it's a lot easier to make a modification than it is to submit a whole new package.
Is there a, and I may have missed it by coming in late, is there a time that is scheduled for opening day?
I know the open public, basically when you submit it, they have open public reviews 45 days.
We're looking at for next year, not for this year.
Yeah, it would be for
Alright,
next
still.
year.
Mhm.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to get it in
Right.
this year. I've been told that DEC is a little lagged with the review process right now, so I can't really give you a timetable.
So there's no time crunch?
I mean, the longer they sit at Brownsfield,
Right.
the worse they are.
Right, okay.
So the quicker we can get them in the water, the better.
Okay.
Okay, so-
Since some of the members of the council are concerned about cost, could we perhaps say that this can proceed, and the first thing this group will do is report back to us with those costs, and then we'll decide whether to go further or not. So let's let them start the process,
Right.
and then as soon as they find out costs, they can report back to us. Does that make sense? Okay.
Would it require them to wait a whole month? Presuming if things are just about ready to go, do you mean?
Right, that would, that would put it off for a
next
month until
meeting,
this
right?
committee met again.
See, that's the
Unless
way to
we,
do it
unless
is-
we change, unless we change the resolution to put a price tag on it,
Yeah,
not to
like
exceed.
Not to exceed $5,000.
5,000, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Achieves the same purpose, probably a little faster.
Will that work a little bit easier for you all?
Yes, absolutely.
well, a few counselors were a little later coming in, and I had asked about the possibility of adding these to Dock Street, to the configuration of phases 2 and 3. And I was surprised to hear that there is no more possibility of doing, I guess, phase 2 and 3 because of the settlement with the boat basin.
I don't think that's entirely true.
Oh, okay, that's,
It was my understanding reading it that
Right.
phase 2 and 3 couldn't be done.
Phase 2 and 3
Right.
as depicted,
As
because
depicted.
those were within the setback.
Because
we
There's
had a
absolutely nothing
conversation
prohibiting
that
the expansion of the
included
marina
uses.
beyond that
Okay,
setback
I'm
distance.
glad you're here, and I'm glad you cleared that up. Thank you.
And you are also working for some temporary ways to increase transient boat opportunities as early as this summer down in Dock Street as a trial project as well.
Yeah.
So those conversations, Counselor, are still continuing.
That's great.
We got the fishing tournament, so.
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
Summer.
Thank you. So I guess in the, in our regular meeting, we can make that change to that resolution. If we so decide.
If you get it on now, yeah, you could.
Put it on now?
It'll be there
Okay.
automatically.
Okay, so I guess we need a motion to change the request, approval of the request of the Department of Public Works to be authorized to prepare and submit all necessary plans, documents, permits to the appropriate agencies for the approval of a small boat marina located at Wilcox Dock. The costs associated with these filings are not to exceed $5,000.
So moved. Is that a workable sum for you folks? Think it's reasonable amount?
Okay. A motion, a second? I guess it has to be me because Patrick and I are the committee.
And me.
Patrick, the second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, folks. Moving on, request from the Water Pollution Control Plant to extend contract 2017-8 sledge hauling for the WPCP until May 31st of 2019 with Drumac Septic Service for the total lump sum price of $186,224.48. Chris and John, I don't know if have any
questions?
Anyone have any questions, concerns?
This is for the removal of our biosolids, but we call it sludge still. So if we didn't remove this, our plant would instantly go into a violation because we just have solids.
It's no
Yeah, we don't want
brainer.
that. But what this actually is it's paying for the contractor Drumac Septic to be available 24/7, 5 days a week. If we have any emergencies, they have multiple trucks. They come over and haul our city-owned trailers and bring it to the landfill where we bring them. So that's what it is.
And this comes out, this is coming out of the sewer reserve?
Nope. This is a budget item every year.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind.
And it
though,
is in the amount that's quoted here is adequately covered in the
Yes.
budget.
So this is the first of 4-year extensions?
Yes, we do that because we actually kind of make out because with fuel costs and things like that, they can't adjust it. The electrical bid, they can actually change their wage every year, but with sludge hauling, they can't. So it's actually good that they agree to the extensions. So we can actually keep the costs down a little bit.
How long have we been under contract with Drumac?
With Drumac, yeah, it was before I was there, so 10 years. Quite a while. We haven't had any problems with them at all. They're always there. Rarely any hiccups. They keep their trailers maintained or their tractor maintained. And they do good work.
Oh, that's so nice just to have an easy decision to make here.
Keep in mind that the dewatering and the sludge removal, you all generate revenue from that as
Yes, we
well.
do.
And a fair amount of revenue. How much revenue can you generate in a year from that?
From sludge, from hauled waste.
Servicing other entities?
Yeah, quite a bit. What was last year?
Last year was 1.5 million.
Wow.
And we're doing pretty well this year too, so it's really good. So this is all part of that. We do have to remove what they bring in, so gotta pay. So.
Any other questions?
No?
I mean, we don't have to.
Number 3, I think we need a motion from the committee now because it's on the regular agenda. Right. We can do it all at once. Number 3, while you're up, Chris, to extend the contract of the instrumentation water pollution control plant, water filtration plant until June 27th of 19 with the total cost. Control system services for the lump sum of $36,212.
Yep. It's a very specialized position. He comes in, we have level sensors, flow sensors, any type of sensors, electrical, well, small electrical, like milliamps, but he comes in a quarterly or on an emergency basis, and he calibrates those things, troubleshoots them, installs new applications such as that. And actually, last year, his bid price of $36,212 did not go over. It was right on the dollar. So, and he said that's what's going to be this year too, as long as we don't have any emergency, of course. But that's an emergency.
Questions?
I know it says that this is the first one-year extension. Do we have a contract for how many
It's
one-year
two extensions. So 2 1-year extensions. This will be the first. And we're up in the air about next year too. Clemsy's retiring, so we might be actually figuring something else out. But for now.
Okay, any questions? Request from the Water Pollution Control Plant, permission to advertise for contract 2018-07 electrical services for the city of Plattsburgh Water Pollution Control Plant. I guess my question is what electrical services?
That's a good question. So what we do is we contract a company out for our electrical services. And for us specifically, it's industrial, an electrician for industrial application. That's high voltage. These days it's sensors. He'll actually work right alongside the instrumentation contractor. So sensors, things like that, but DC motors, AC motors, very specialized equipment that you will only find in applications such as ours. But what this is too is it's not only one person, it's the whole company. For instance, our electrician right now just went on vacation for 10 days. We still had backup. We had an unwired motor to work on it. We still had the guy, one of the other workers at the company came, unwired it. So they're always on call, which is excellent. But he is available for other city departments too. He'll work up at the water plant or any other department if it's requested. So this is for mostly us, but he's available for everyone.
I guess the question is, this isn't anything that we could use MLD for?
I think that was explored before. Yeah, it's very special. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
They don't train on motors and stuff like that.
Okay,
We would have to hire people to do that.
okay,
Good question, it comes up all the time. Yes.
okay.
And the other thing that comes up once in a while is this doesn't preclude us from using other contractors for other services within the city, although that has been confused in the past. So just to be clear that this
same
only
contractor.
applies to the water pollution control plant.
And they're just available for other use if needed or
If
wanted.
needed,
Moving on, request from the environmental manager, John Ruff, to create a capital project in the amount of $300,000 for design and bid of water pollution control plant dewatering system upgrades. Funding would be from the sewer reserve.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. So I think there was a question, Jeff.
This
You
one
had
had
a-
a really good question. I suspect somebody, the rest of you might have it. Why is a $300,000 project, or why does a $300,000 project have $252,000 in engineering costs? The $300,000 for the capital project is to just get us through design and bidding. So it's basically for the engineering and some initial miscellaneous costs. The anticipated total cost of the project is going to be in the neighborhood of $3 million. So you're looking at about, I think it's 8.3 or 8.4% of the total project cost for the design engineering and the design engineering bidding services. And if you look on the internet, different websites that give you a range of costs, typically you see 8 to 12% for design projects. You also find that for normal design projects, you also find that water and wastewater plants are considered to be more complicated than typical design projects. So you'd expect the percentage of the total construction cost for design to be on the high end, closer to 12%, which would be more like $360,000. In this case, we're on the low end. So from a general sense, the engineering cost makes sense. If you get into the specifics of what the engineer is actually going to be designing, even though it's belt filter presses, There's a number of other smaller but really complicated components that are going to take a lot of time. So we're actually getting a lot for our money. And if you go through each task, the estimated cost for each task, and break it down into a composite hourly rate, they're in a very reasonable range. So.
You mentioned in the past that there'd be an element of odor control. A fair amount of your odor is that transfer of solids and liquids and depressing and all that kind of stuff. Can you talk a little bit about the odor control? And so that's kind of an upgrade to the quality of life aspect.
For this specific project, one of the odor control elements is going to be to try to install hoods right over the bell filter presses so the odor gets contained. The first step in good odor control is containing the odor, not letting it get out. Because if you can't contain it, it gets out, there's nothing you can do about it. If you do a good job containing it, now you can get it to a place where you can actually treat it and get it into the scrubbing system. So this project will also do a better job of containing the high-strength odors coming right off the bell filter presses and getting them to the activated carbon scrubbers that we already have.
Now, this was originally budgeted for 2020, correct?
Correct. And these units they're shot. We're cannibalizing parts here and there. We're welding patches on structural frames, all kinds of stuff. From a financial perspective, if you look at how much money we spend each year, may not push you into saying, oh yeah, these things are shot, but they're so far gone that it could become a critical catastrophe, where all of a sudden something breaks and you just can't fix it and the unit's down. So when we look at whether it makes sense to build new, or should we keep repairing things, you can do your cost of, right, we're spending $20,000 a year on repairs, but it's a $3 million project, that's a $200,000 bond payment. It doesn't make sense to build new, it would make sense to repair. But when you start to consider the fact that they're really not repairable to a large extent, now we're getting into the realm of catastrophic failure, and you just being down and out, and then we're looking at a year to 18 months to get a replacement. So.
Well, how much is in the sewer reserve right now?
Right now, enough to fund this, definitely.
Yeah,
We're probably pushing, $5-6 million maybe in the reserve.
Yeah, I thought I remembered that.
Did you get those numbers last week?
I guess I didn't. No, I didn't get that
She
email.
was just looking for a refresher, if anybody.
Yeah, the old
We
brain.
definitely got the information, she just needed a little
See if
clarification.
I knew the number.
But
She hit refresh.
my point is, the point I was leading to was that
We planned for that.
we plan for that, and that's
So,
why you have
we
this.
planned for it, we've got the money. So just two components to the request. One is to create the capital project. Rich will be back later with a formal resolution, but this will let us get going into the next item number 6, which is the design contract with CDM Smith for the $252,000.
So if that system went down, you'd also potentially lose the stream of revenue you collect from the dewatering process as
Correct.
well. So there's a revenue problem if that system went down as well.
Will that affect any other 2020 budget plans? Because we were at $7,050,000 for 2020. That's $3 million coming out. Would that affect the hauled waste at $1 million? Will there be other things that would have to get moved into this as well?
No, the question is going to be, are we going to now do all of the 2018 stuff that we've planned? And we're still taking a look at whether or not we've got the resources to do these other things.
Because you didn't have a whole lot planned
No,
for
we didn't.
18.
No.
475.
And some of it's tied up with the DRI, like some of the architectural stuff, so we're probably end up doing it, but if for some reason the DRI schedule's a little later out, the component of the architectural component will kind of trail that project more than drive it.
Huh.
So,
Any other questions? Thank you, John.
thank you.
Item 7, request from Director of Community Development Matthew Miller, Mayor be authorized to sign an agreement with the Plattsburgh Little League to replace the current backstop on the Little League baseball field at South Platt Park. Is that at the Berto Field, or is it a one of the other field that's over there?
I forget which one, but I was gonna make a request that the council table this until next week because the $950 cost that's on there is inaccurate. that was miscommunication. My mistake, but that was for another project that's unrelated, so I just wanted to get an accurate number for you guys before voting on it.
Okay. So item 7 can be tabled?
Yep.
Okay, there is one additional item that came to us late this afternoon, and that is from Adam Frazier. And there's a letter here from Mr. Brody requesting that we amend our contract for the Durkee Street Site Management Plan Monitoring with CT Mail Associates. The total estimate for the work is $6,373.33. However, there remains $4,124.34 in their contract. The amendment would be an increase for $2,300 for the work to perform groundwater sampling analysis inspection as required by New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. So this would not, this is an unbudgeted item. But a necessary one for Durkee Street. Does anyone have any questions for Mike?
No.
So this is something we already contracted for, the price is just higher than we
What we
anticipated.
anticipate.
Basically,
But it's absolutely necessary and inspired by
yes.
NISDAQ.
Yes.
I have no more questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. I guess I'll entertain a motion to move forward all of the agenda items 2 through 6 and number 8.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Old business. The only thing I have under old business is for the mics. Any progress on plans for road resurfacing?
Well, a couple different projects. Obviously, Main Road, there was a question brought up about that. Main Road has gone out to bid, so that will be a complete reconstruction for this season. South Peru Street, that is also one that we're considering. We're waiting on some drainage easement questions to be answered. And then one that we're looking at seriously, and we've done our preliminary survey work, is Broad Street, starting in South Catherine, running up towards the Kilo Administration Building right west of just beyond.
Okay. Any questions for Mike and Mike on the resurfacing plans?
Are there any other
Would-
roads that plan
oh,
to be
I'm sorry.
resurfaced this year?
We have to see where we stand with our CHIPS funding. A lot of these projects, Main Road in particular, there's a substantial amount of CHIPS money that goes into that, so that will drive what we can do. Broad Street project is pretty ambitious, but it takes care of some big problems we had. We had a real bad one there. One stretch from in the center, we lost 5 tires in a span of a week and a half, 3 in one night.
And the turn also, the turn, I guess it would be south? No, anyway, the turn from South Catherine up Broad, there was pretty good sized crater there.
And so that will drive, the Main Road results will drive what we have in Main. There are several other streets, smaller in the city, that
Bless you.
much like Prospect, we probably put them off later this season.
Season for some mill and fill. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other old business? New business? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Me? All in favor? Or, no, we need a roll call. I'm sorry. Thank you, Beth.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Insel?
Yes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Let's begin the work session for the Common Council. It's an opportunity for us to have a little bit of extended discussion on any of these items on the agenda, many of which you've already thoroughly discussed. Any other items that you'd like to bring up at this time before we begin our regular meeting in 10 minutes? And is there any need for an executive session of any sort? Not on your end.
Thank you. You want to show? Dave, you want to sign? Good.
Councilor Kelly, at the end of the regular meeting, are you going to have another short budget session today?
Yes, we are.
Is there anything you'd like to talk about for the public to whet their interest in that, to stay on for that part of the meeting?
Sure, sure. Well, we've started the process of our five-year budget plan for 2019, which is due to be enacted by June 1st of this year, and it will guide the mayor in preparing his budget for next year. And we've come to some decisions already. I guess the greatest one was that we all agree that there's some underlying assumptions for the five-year plan that we've all come to agree upon, and that was a great accomplishment. We have a foundation for our thinking going forward. We also dealt at our last meeting with the matter of inflation and how do we decide what rate of inflation to apply to our five-year plan. So we've come to agreement on that, although that may be up for modification, which we'll talk about at tonight's meeting. And tonight we're going to talk about bonding. We're also going to talk about I can't remember. I have the agenda on a slideshow, but there's several issues that we can affect that we can make decisions on tonight and then start to assemble our five-year plan. So the plan going forward is to have one additional meeting next week to finalize some of the outstanding issues, and then to vote on that the following week. So we should be able to enact our five-year plan for 2019 as of, I think it's May 27th.
Terrific, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Would any councilors like to offer councilor comments or early councilor reports in 5 minutes or so?
I'll start. So the Governance Strategy and City Operations Committee met on May 3rd, and we discussed farmers market expansion, DPW looking into helping with some extra barricades to give a safe barrier for extra space that we're allotting. We talked about our ongoing efforts with Brian Brayton with strategic planning, software demos that are being scheduled. We talked about appointing a new grant writer, and then we also, I'm trying to think what else. What else, Rochelle? There was, and then since then, we, Councilor Dowdle and Armstrong and myself are working to kind of formalize the structure for a city ethics board. So that's underway, and we're making some progress. So I guess that's the report I have.
May I ask a question on parking or on parklets? You've gone through the process of approving the parklets. Would that preclude any late applicants from asking for your consideration at a future time in the season?
As long as there's space.
As long as there's room.
Yeah, as long as there's space still.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
I think there were 2 spaces left, is that correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right, Mrs. Parrott? 2 spaces left?
That's Joe. Joe's
Joe, sorry, okay. He's not-
That's what I remember.
Any other
I can-
questions? Councilor Rensselaer, please.
Just, before our council report, just, had, along with the mayor, an opportunity on Saturday to attend the dedication of the Hector Duquette Little League Field, and what a wonderful ceremony and what a wonderful turnout. There had to be, close to 1,000 people there, I would estimate, and he was very, very overcome with emotion, and it was great to see the kids there, and a lot of people came from out of town, and a lot of his former players and a lot of citizens were there just to support him, and so it was a wonderful event. Also, just moving on to the infrastructure committee report, a lot of the items that we talked about we will be voting on, but Bill, I don't think you were here when an issue came up regarding the crosswalk on Margaret and Cornelia, that it has, one direction allows people to walk while the light is green and the traffic is going by. I don't know if that, there seems to be.
Actually, no, that whole intersection shuts down.
No, it doesn't.
It should shut down, that's what it was designed to do.
Okay. Well, according to Mr. Moore, he's been beeped at quite often and sworn at as he's walking.
Well, if they tried, yeah, they tried, what are they driving, right, red and so forth?
No, it's green coming down Cornelia Street, across Margaret Street, and the walk sign is up. The cars are.
To cross over Cornelia.
Do that, so I checked it, double checked it twice, walked back to the other side of the street, the light is green, and the walk sign is up.
Okay, I'll have to take a look.
Well, if we're making a list, that's also true of Cogan and Cornelia Street.
Well, that's the way that's designed.
Yes, okay, that's through DOT, yes.
Focus. Which street did you say?
Cogan and
Cogan and
Cornelia.
Cornelia.
Yeah. If it's by the Starbucks,
No.
it's Healy. That's DOT.
Okay, that's one down, where the entrance to
It'd be by
Aldi's.
the car
Aldi's.
wash.
Yeah, that only stops in the direction, the walk is in the direction the traffic stops. It doesn't shut down the full intersection.
No, it doesn't, okay.
We only primarily do that around the school. But if you want that we'd have to do a project and it probably cost about $50,000 to modify that.
That's what I was told.
Yes, we'd have to get the proper equipment in there to do that. We do that whole one.
Okay, some other items that we discussed in the infrastructure were also prospective road resurfacing projects. Main Road, South Peru Street is being considered, and also Broad Street from St. Catherine, St. Catherine, wrong city.
It's quite a stretch. It's quite a stretch.
From South Catherine up to Beekman.
Thank you. Any other quick reports? Otherwise, we can do it in the main part of the meeting.
The MLD report, there's nothing to report, so it's quick.
That's very quick. Well, let's begin the meeting of the Common Council for tonight, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed.
Present.
Councilor Armstrong.
Here.
Councilor Kelly.
Here?
Councilor Dowdle.
Here.
Councilor Rensselaer.
Here.
Councilor McFarland.
Present.
Councilor Kretzer.
Here.
Last weekend, I think you all heard sirens going out just about for the entire weekend. Our first responders were incredibly busy. We had probably one of the biggest windstorms to affect our area quite some time. As a matter of fact, it even disrupted potentially the dedication of the park the next morning. There was a bullpen strewn all over the place following it, and a number of lines were repaired. A day or two later, still 10% of the county were without power, but your crew got about 99% of the problem solved within the first 24 hours. Only had a couple of lingering homes or areas to deal with after that. So you all did an incredible job and remedied an awful lot of damage. And of course, you know, it just wasn't you, the police and the fire calls that weekend. They were incredibly busy, and it was topped off with a pretty major fire the following Monday as well. So all of our first responders and emergency workers and public works people were all very, very busy for this last week, and really can't thank you. And first of all, and remind or tell the council just how hard they had to really work to put all that together. Probably the biggest emergency response the city has had for one reason or another in quite some time. Great job, folks. And that's all I have.
And in the half marathon going on besides.
That's right. And without anybody even skipping a beat. Wonderful work, everybody. Thank you.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on May 3rd, 2018 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor Kretzler, second by Councilor Ansel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending May 9th, 2018 in the amount of $548,330.28 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Kelly and second by Councilor Armstrong. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. People can see in their packets the building inspector's office reports. We've got a couple of reports from the various committees. Anybody else would like to offer additional reports? Anything else from you, Councilor Kretzler?
No, I think I covered it in the work session.
Councilor Kelly for finance and budget?
We do have our monthly finance and budget committee meeting next week, so I'd like to get together with Mr. Marks sometime between now and then and discuss this, state of the finances and any other issues that he or Peter might have. So.
I think I skipped over city infrastructure again. Councilor Ansel, anything else to add?
No.
Public safety, Councilor Dowdle?
No updates.
Plattsburgh Public Library, Councilor Armstrong?
No updates.
And MLD, anything new come up in the last 5 minutes for MLD? Councilor McCollum? It's resolved the reports as listed are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file amongst the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councilor Ansel and second by Councilor Kelly. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No correspondences at this time.
Resolved that the bills honored by the Common Council for the week ending May 11th, 2018 in the amount of $1,009,137.39 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Dowdle. Discussion?
I have a question. On the leak repairs to the Crate Center roof of a $2,076, where does that leave us with the Crate Center roof? I know it was heavily discussed earlier. Is that just a quick fix? Where does it leave us?
That's a quick fix. And actually, I think the original purchase order is the amount of $4,000. I was actually up on the roof last Thursday or Friday with the roofer. We looked at the defects they had repaired. They were helping significantly. There's still one substantial leak on a back roof that we were unaware of. We're looking into that, but it has helped a lot. The purchase order is almost exhausted, though. It is actually, he's up to the $4,000. He'll cut it off right there.
And we're good to go for how long with this? Any predictions on that?
Meanwhile, though, they are running up estimates for how much permanent repair would cost or re-roofing would cost. And we did have a wonderful community business come and volunteer many of the materials that we could use if it turns out to fit into the engineering specs that we would need, so we are pursuing estimates for that as well.
So that would be a major undertaking.
Yeah, but it would be 6 figures.
Okay. That was my only question. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. It's an opportunity for anybody in the public to please come up and address the council on any issues on the agenda tonight. We will have another public comment period at the end of the meeting for any other issues of your concern.
This
Seeing-
session is just for agenda items. Okay, sorry.
I think so. I think they must speak to some other issue, don't they?
Yeah.
I think you wanted to come and speak to some issue that's not on the agenda at the end of the other public comment period, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Continue, please.
Motion to remove item 7A from the table.
Any interest in moving item A?
Yeah, I'll speak to that. Yeah, I feel like we're kind of undergoing a healthy and good process, and you know, having conversations amongst ourselves, offering edits. For my part, I've been pulling up other documents and comparing what other municipalities have done. We've had good conversations with Mayor Reed, and I think we'd like to continue the process for at least another week.
Certainly.
All right?
So no action taken.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves Department of Public Works to prepare and submit all necessary plans, documents, and permits to the appropriate agencies for the approval of a small boat marina located at Wilcox Dock at a cost not to exceed $5,000.
Moved by Councilor Ansel, second by Councilor McFarland. Discussion?
Just, once again, that this is only for, it's not the actual approval of the marina, it's only for essentially the exploration of the permits. And I would like to thank you, Andrew, for an excellent presentation in the infrastructure committee. Very informative and very thorough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves extending contract number 2017-8 sludge hauling for WPCP until May 31st, 2019 with drum septic service for the total lump sum price of $186,224.48.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Armstrong. Discussion? It seems like we're not having much discussion on pretty large items. It's only because we thoroughly discussed it just in the committee meeting just beforehand. Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves extending contract number 2017-09 instrumentation water pollution control plant, water filtration plant until June 27th, 2019 with Total Control System Services Inc. for the total lump sum price of $36,212.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Armstrong. Discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves water pollution control plan permission to advertise for contract number 2018-04 electrical services for the City of Plattsburgh water pollution control plan.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Kretzer. Discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves creating capital project in the amount of $300,000 for design and bid of water pollution control plant dewatering system upgrades. Funding will be from the sewer reserve.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second Councilor Dowdle. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves and authorizes executing contract for engineering services for design for water pollution control plant dewatering system upgrades with CDM Smith in the amount of $251,900.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Ensel. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves MLD to advertise for bids for PMLD bid number 2018-5-1, substation batteries, bid opening date June 12, 2018 at 11 a.m.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Kretzer. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved that in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves PMLD bid number 2018-3-1 pole top 3-phase switches be awarded to Irby Company in the amount of $49,782.60.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Armstrong. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council authorizes the mayor to sign a consulting contract with the Finch Network for grant services involving consolidated funding applications, CFAs, in an amount not to exceed $15,000 to be expensed out of the community development budget.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor McFarland. Any discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance.
This item was removed?
Well, yeah,
Is
this
that
was
correct?
removed, table.
No trouble requests at this time. Are there any items for initial consideration?
Oh, there was item number 8 from the infrastructure administrators.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 8 regarding the resolution for CT map.
I'd like to make a motion to implement Rule 4.
Second.
And move the item for consideration. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Discussion on the item itself.
Beth, do you have the wording of the resolution?
Thought you were reading it.
I will.
No, when you added under.
Okay, sure.
That's okay, I'll do it.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, the Common Council approves the mayor to sign technical services change order number 2, Durkee Street Site Management Plan monitoring in the amount of $2,300.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Any other new business or additional council reports at this time? Seeing none, this is another opportunity for the public to please come and address the council. I do ask to have you remain under a 5-minute time limit for your comments, and please state your name and your address. Come forward.
Hi, my name is Alexandria Elliott. I am a SUNY Plattsburgh student. I'm handing out to each of you a copy of a resolution not to be passed today, but to be discussed a little bit. One that I would love to see this city actually pass. So, as I said, my name is Alexandria Elliott. I'm originally from Gabriel's, which is a small town located right next to Paul Smith's. Growing up, trips to Plattsburgh were a regular part of my childhood, and so I consider Plattsburgh to be part of the region that I'm from. I've been watching the way that the climate has changed in the North Country over the course of my lifetime. Data collected in this region is likewise showing that Plattsburgh and the Adirondack Park is not safe from the presence of climate change and is impacting our lives today. I am aware that the city of Plattsburgh makes efforts to promote sustainability and make environmentally conscious decisions with things like our Earth Day celebration and citywide recycling programs. I commend the city on these efforts. However, with the impacts of climate change upon our door, I cannot help but ask myself what else we could be doing to be leaders in the North Country and truly promote a fossil fuel-free future. It is my hope in presenting this resolution before you today that we can begin a dialogue to take steps to make a brighter future, not just for me, but also for the high school students who are here today with me. The path ahead may not be simple, but I believe with enough collaboration we can create a future worth fighting for. The first step to reducing our carbon footprint is to create a climate action plan, which asks that the city begin the process of achieving net zero emissions by 2040, which was in accordance with what scientists tell us is necessary to prevent the worst effects of climate change. And finally, we ask that the Plattsburgh youth be included in the process of making environmental policy. We are the transitional generation, the last to be born into a society focused on short-term greed and the first to enter the sustainable world we know is possible. The first to experience the major effects of climate change and the last with the ability to do anything about it. Because of this, we want to be at the table. We don't want the conversation to end here. We are here because we want to work with you more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I might add that we hope to be able to do this well before 2040. We're working with Professor Lauren Eastwood to do a carbon analysis for the city. You know that almost all of our heating and electricity is derived from renewable sources or non-hydrocarbon based sources. There are vehicles that travel in and out of the city, and they obviously are emitters of hydrocarbons and tip our balance in the opposite direction a little bit there. But we're hoping to conclude that the extensive green spaces we have within the city are not a sufficient carbon sink to absorb those carbon emissions as well. So I'm very hopeful that once the analysis is complete, we as a city can declare ourselves carbon neutral as very soon. And I would love to see signs as people come into the city of Plattsburgh making it well known that our city relies on fuel primarily from non-carbon generating sources.
A number of us are educators here. Well, yeah, Peter, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see your request to be at the table. I think that's, I appreciate your dedication and your willingness to foresee the kind of imminent doom if we don't take action now, and to be willing to do the work alongside us. Thank you.
I also know that Alexandria and two of her fellow students attended our last MLD board meeting.
That's right.
In my short tenure, they're the only people to come attend. What means they asked a lot of questions, and it was a lot of fun. So thank you.
Thank you, and I really hope that you'll look over the resolution. And,
Definitely.
I believe that Beth has made the known and Michelle, you have it as well. So I would love to work with you folks to continue this kind of progress, and I'm certain that other students and others in the audience who are here tonight feel the same, and that's why they came out to show their support. So,
Thank you.
Thank you for the work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All of you.
That's kind of a tough one to follow, but is there anybody else who'd like to come and please address the council?
Okay, I speak as both a grandmother of 3 students in the Plattsburgh City school system and a gardener. And so I'm doubly concerned. I was down, but never mind. I was with a friend by the lakeside who down there frequently a couple of days ago, and he commented that he had never seen the lake level so high. And so it's not for the future, it's now. It's now. We're seeing the effects now. And I'd like to respond to what you said, Mr. Mayor. that the demand for energy keeps growing. And the hydroelectric may be satisfying it now, but we need to have a plan for other ways to meet the demand when it grows, because building a bigger dam just displaces people and animal habitat upstream. And so there needs to be some planning. And if I'm recognizing that council really works hard. This council really works hard. So the suggestion that I heard was for a committee to make a plan, okay? And if you were to want some members of the community to serve on that committee to help out, I'd be more than happy.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Any other individuals like to please come and address the council?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend the municipal lighting department. They did a great job with the power outages this weekend. We were one of the last ones, and it was only a day and a half before we got power back. And that was because it was a pretty big, extensive job. Got to watch the guys in action, and they did a great job, and I want to thank them for getting our power back. I know they were very busy, and it was over the weekend, so those guys must have been tired.
It was a long weekend.
Thanks.
And it's very dangerous work too. You know, you're talking about large trees and poles that were snapped, very high voltages, and an awful lot of very powerful wind all at the same time. These people were out right from the beginning of the storm. Some of them, I don't think, even slept for 36 hours. So
No,
we really appreciate all your work.
They worked out from 9:30. Most of them came in at 9:30 Friday night and did not go home till 6 o'clock Saturday.
Now, one of your
And
supervisors,
Saturday evening, 6 p.m., not 8.
one of your supervisors chose to take a well-earned vacation and ended his vacation plans early to make it back to remedy this. And by the way, we're not going to let him leave the city anytime soon because we think he may have jinxed us. But
his employees are not going to let him leave. But yes, he couldn't get a flight out of North Carolina. So he wound up getting a rental car, driving from Washington,
wow.
D.C., and then getting a flight from Washington, D.C. to get back up
That
here.
is amazing dedication. Wow.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public, please? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Ansel. Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ansel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Pretzer?
Yes.
Please stick around and hear a little bit about the budget process if you're interested, and thank you all for coming.
Yes. Did you keep
Take a 5-minute back.
Oh, I will go right behind you. Then I'll take a 7-minute.
Right where I am?
Okay.
I'll try to keep it straightforward.
I'll even
Can you take it, so you've got a pathway to keep it all in the building?
I had a great time. That was my first thing.
Well, I wanted to. You're gonna need to get a bigger pocket.
They don't last too long.
Need some pocket protector.
Sometimes they carry reading glasses.
Oh, yeah.
I have that, and I.
It's easier when I have that distance.
So what are you?
When I have the camera.
Concerns I have
This
is
is fixed itself.
there's specific
Now I don't
focus
read
code of
glasses.
conduct that's been presented also according to
Yeah, to get my party.
presently have
So I'll
a
take it
charter,
off.
we have code,
Guys,
we have
if there's any
ICON, all regulations. So we have 3 layers present. A couple things in this code of conduct that addresses things that are outside council. General ideas between the mayor and his, because it also goes as well as council members. I don't think we need an extensive protocol, and I do believe that there are some
As I look through it,
I see you tomorrow, but I won't see you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see you Tuesday.
Are you looking forward to the trip?
Yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's
Yes. I call it the transportation.
As of Monday, he starts. Yeah. So, we said, Mom, I need
Several issues in here. If this even continues, so.
we would have had to practice.
this is the second time in
Stressed out.
to make a bad.
I anticipated this. One of the specific conversations I had. One thing that's citizens, taxpayers, constituents, whatever you want to call them, on this issue than anything in the 4 years that I've been on it. What are you hearing from them? They're opposed to it. Big councils should not be stifled in some respects. And I do agree with some of the communication lines, but I don't agree with them.
Make it back, I'll buy you.
You said,
I think that's my interpretation, someone else's.
well, you mentioned stifled. I've heard people call it undragable.
It seems like there's a lot of things where like,
It's not a
municipal game that's like all the municipalities in the town.
Well, there's several things that have voted for. I can't sign. Anybody remember to get some opponent silence? Okay, good.
Yes, forgot. Sorry. Okay.
It's not that I forgot.
Oh, that's.
Until you mentioned that, I wasn't even thought about it. But that's interesting. Although I'm glad it turned to parking because that's something I find very interesting.
I think we need to. I think it limits some of our authority.
Yeah.
And there's sections in here when compared to the charter.
Yes, I have reviewed it. There are changes my own schedule is kind of prevented from
this particular code may have discussed one concern, which is to override whether or not we stay with this code. Just to be determined. I personally don't believe it.
So I'm glad everyone else was kind of.
We stay with this one, and we have to modify it.
Figure out the nuances.
Thanks, Dan.
That's kind of a non-answer.
Get my belly back.
Oh, now he's
No,
running.
not at this moment. I think it's still a work in progress.
Oh, I better use
as
the
far as that
restroom.
goes. There's things I like about it, there's things I don't like about it. And I suppose even if one gets.
Oh, should it be?
Yes,
Oh, how long should it be? I mean, I was ready if it went into further conversation. No matter what we have, it's not going to pay off. But there's negativity that's it's like any role. As a teacher, anything, you gotta just goes with the job.
But I do that we can later on.
It's freezing, right?
Oh.
Pie in the Sky, Pollyanna.
Who's interviewed other people? What are other people's responses? I was surprised no one got up to speak about it today. Clearly that's all the people. Busy thing, and I was expecting a lot of people to come up, and I was actually taking feedback because I wanted to hear public views on it. Is it not available? That was the ostensible reason for.
Well, if you bring it back to
tabling
that,
it last week.
so rather than change the resolution, which I had prepared a resolution, if that was the main focus. But apparently it's not. I'll be back.
All right, I gotta use the
Hey, do you have a second?
Absolutely, you're doing the wrong way.
Question for you. When I get to vote on this item.
That's the same thing like betting on horses. It's like betting on horses. It's the same
The
difference.
various payrolls of various departments in the city of Plattsburgh. Blah, blah, blah. For next week, when it's just the police. What if I vote no? Think that'll get that discussion going?
I'll take that one.
I can put it up as a discussion. I'm just curious. I'm not really that gung-ho about it.
It's cheaper.
Bringing it up as a discussion.
Beer in my time.
You don't go fishing.
No spear, no sport.
Well, my longest.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
I'm trying.
Sorry for that. I think to get you in. I got
I think we're getting ready to get started.
Hi, good, how are you? Good.
I just wanted to talk about the public comment.
Sure.
You said something like you had some changes that you were talking about.
We'd been through the process of making suggestions. I had researched some other kinds of approaches to writing such a code. I came in with Councilor Dowdle this afternoon, and we kind of went back and forth about the different approaches to writing this, and had some feedback from the corporate council, talking about goals, the best way to kind of achieve those goals. And so, in conversation, we decided that we could extend the process and continue to talk and come up with the best document possible. I think they're, well, I think that there may be, from my point of view, depending on the nature and detail, I'm more in favor of a more generic code. And I've even found one that kind of describes the positive conduct that public officials
I went up $5,000.
Oh, that's expected to display. So I'm maybe in favor of
My assessment is now $2,000 over what I paid for it.
There you go. I'll see if I can call somebody and get that straightened out.
Oh, you want to get it down for me? For the market value?
No.
Well, we were just in conversation. We went in to report to the mayor about the code of ethics.
Oh, he's ready.
So why didn't
He's
I
ready.
describe the
Patrick,
nature
you ready?
of our discussions?
Michael, you ready?
Okay, it's Mike's show.
It's not about your question.
Well, no. I suppose I would report out when I had more to say, when I had more
We lose Josh.
I think so. It looks like you
of a definite idea of what direction I wanted to go.
Okay,
All right, no problem.
I'd like to call to order this budget hearing. Last budget hearing, we made these assumptions as a group and got general consensus that these are good goals to strive for. So I thought we'd just take a quick minute and let you review those. Let those goals guide our further discussions. Any questions or further concerns about those? Okay. Let's see. Our accomplishments, we agreed on the underlying assumption. We agreed on the rate of inflation. We talked about 3%, but Peter Insel mentioned at our last meeting that he felt as though it might be more. And with further discussion he and I had this afternoon, we think maybe 3.15% is the right number for inflation. We believe that the 1% health care add-on may not be enough. And actually adding the extra 0.15% may not be enough, but it will certainly help. Does anyone have anything to add to that proposed change?
I have a question, Mike. If that change was put in last year, how would that change last year's 5-year plan?
Had we done that last year?
Well,
3.15%.
That's a good question. I don't know. Last year we went with 2%. And of course, inflation has changed this year, so it's increased some since last year. So I'll tell you what we'll do, Patrick, if it will help you, get a better handle on it. We'll plug that 3.15 number into the budget going forward to see what it does to our expenses. And we can back it up and throw it into 2018 also.
And the 1% healthcare add-on, that was for the general fund healthcare costs?
Yes.
Because last year, well, for the 2018 budget, we increased the appropriations almost $204,000 over the mayor's budget based on the advice of the key bank healthcare administrators.
You're right, Dale, there was an additional lump sum
There was
put
a
in.
considerable, and that was before, now we're gonna have to figure in the retiree, the ones that are going back on the original plan, is that correct? We're gonna have to figure that out.
Yeah, what's that gonna cost
Okay.
the city? That's a good point, Dale.
Yeah.
We,
should be a wash.
It should be a wash?
Yeah, the Excellus plan is costing just as much as traditional blue. And that's why everybody's moving back to blue, because to make the Excellus plan comparable with traditional blue now, they'd have to add a 0-10 copay prescription plan to the Excellus plan, which would add $100 to $150 more per month per participant, which is like 69 of them. So at this point, it makes no sense to continue with the Schedule F Excellus plan, because it's not a Medicare Advantage plan. It's a Medicare plan that costs the same as our traditional blue costs.
Okay, so there's no impact.
Shouldn't be, because right now the Excellus is about $450 a month, and it's the estimate of our new healthcare analyst that it's about $450 for traditional blue, for the Medicare-aged people.
Okay. So
For the-
with your permission, council, we'll change our 2019 rate of inflation to 3.15%. And see what that does to all the other factors such as the tax rate and the fund balance we have remaining. So,
You know, I agree with your intuition that it may not be enough. If I recall, the county was anticipating healthcare costs rising in the order of 9 or 10%, and that's, as you know, not an unusual number. We've been very fortunate in the city to have some sort of containment, but we also know, being self-insured, we're incredibly vulnerable, made way more vulnerable by the fact we don't have a fund balance to cushion these shocks from one year to the next. So we have been fortunate. This is very aspirational, but I think your intuition that may not be enough could very well be the case.
okay. All right. Let's move ahead. So what we want to look at tonight are first our property tax base increase. We have in the 2018 5-year plan, we had a 1% property tax base increase. And the question that we need to answer is, does this still make sense to the council? Does this still ring true? And just some statistics for you there to consider. In 2017, the property tax total value increased by 0.7%. Over the past 10 years, that average was 1.61%. In the past 5 years, the average property tax base increase has been 1.13%.
I guess my question is, what do we have essentially in the works that would be coming online? I mean, I think of the Zukowski project over on Route 9 by
Lakeside
the Oval.
up here.
What's that?
Potentially Lakeside coming back on.
Yeah.
Lake Country Village, or not Lake Country Village.
Tall Pines.
Lake Forest is putting up.
Lake Forest is putting up, I think, 4 or 6 duplexes on the side of Nevada Oval.
Oh.
Tall Pines Phase 2, I believe, has been approved, but they haven't started construction on Phase 2 yet. So those are a few that I'm aware of.
And if those are spread out over about 2 years, say, it would still only amount to about a 1% increase.
Well, that was the question that I was asking. What if there was anything that I may have be overlooking that, as far as any additional projects coming online?
Well, historically, what drives the property tax increase? Is it building of new properties, or is it increased value of current properties?
But the increased value, well, it would be, they'd have to be reassessed too.
Could be both. I think the rate of inflation comes in here also. When the assessments are done, that plays in. I would recommend to the council that we do increase from the 1% for 2019 to perhaps 1.2. The reason I say that is because you mentioned all these projects that are coming online for 2019, and there's also the rate of inflation seems to be going up, which will increase the value of all these properties.
But yet we won't see that unless those properties are reassessed.
That is true.
Now, the commercial property revaluation is done. The estimate is it's between 1% and 2% increase on average for all properties.
And we are trying to find a pathway to do a commercial reassessment. It wouldn't, they take a long time. You won't see them in 2019, but you might start seeing the results in 2020. But I think a number like 1.2%, I'd be comfortable with that. It's a little bit aspirational. I think we're going to be able to meet that.
Also kind of hints that we're optimistic about the growth of our city, and
It depends on the tax grievances that come up too. I mean, we talked about redevelopment, but what are we gonna have to give away on grievances and settlements?
Right.
Revaluations because of the trend we've set with some individual properties.
And you make a good point. There is going to be a very big tax circular case coming up in the near future.
How do we
I
account
would
for
feel
that
more
then?
comfortable. I would rather err on the side of caution if keeping it at 1 or maybe 1.1 rather than if we go to 1.2 or 1.25 and we find ourselves that we don't hit that target, we're back to square one.
I think if we get the list of what's being developed together with the list of what's gonna be grieved, because I don't have that information, we can certainly come up with an estimate of what our growth is gonna be.
Good.
Then it's a matter of whether we do a commercial evaluation. But I think the estimate for that, Mr. Mayor, was what, 2 years?
Yep.
To actually perform that? And in that performance though, all these settlements, they go away. It all goes back to market value. So I mean, that's a way to take advantage of looking at establishing the values correctly, finally, on commercial property. We haven't done a good job at that in the past 10 years.
To give you
But is there a feeling that they're overassessed?
Some could be, but on average, the assessor at the county believes all commercial properties are going to go up between 1% and 2% on average. So the whole base would increase that much.
This one case that worries me will represent about 1.5% reduction in the tax base from that one case alone. Wow, pretty sizable. So yeah, hearing all that reflection, I might advocate and then go back to the 1% again. I think I agree with you, Councilor Russell.
okay. Council, what do you think? 1%?
I would feel comfortable with it.
Now, for 2020, let's take Mr. Marks' advice there and try to gather some data on new assessments and also grievances.
Yeah, there's a lot of developments that are going to come online, so that's worth looking at in addition to the impact of the grievances.
Okay.
But if we could also say in 2020 the commercial reval would be accomplished, that would be by 2021, that would have to come online, I guess.
Now, you've heard me mention before optimistically that we may be able to have funding for this commercial reval. Our efforts to seek funding for this has been slow, as the Chamberlain knows. It may still be a good idea to do, but it will cost the city for a commercial reval, I don't know, somewhere between $200,000 to $400,000 just for the commercial part, would you say?
Yeah, probably.
But it would be a good investment. This is something we could ask our colleagues with Plattsburgh School District and the county to assist in, because of course they in total reap about twice as much of the gains of a reval as the city would. So there could be help in subsidizing this, but we may conclude through a little bit of a hard-nosed analysis that it might be a good investment with short-term pain, but longer-term within the out years of the 5-year plan, good gains.
Just out of curiosity, would the county assessor's office handle this for us? Or?
No, we would contract out.
Contract, okay.
Or we would work very closely with them. We'd contract out with a firm that would come in and just do that for us.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would just simply take way too long, given the resources that the county could lend us for this.
When was the last residential reassessment?
1990, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. 1990. We're supposed to be at full market value, 100% valuation for all properties.
So when there was discussion, when assessment went to the county that they had a commercial assessor, that was just as new things came onto the rolls?
Correct, if there's a sale or something that for reason to investigate, and he is doing that, he does have that expertise. Our previous full-time assessor had expertise in commercial assessment, if you may recall. I think Councilor Dowell, I think you may have been on the council at the time when we had that, and he was trying to do pocket certain categories of commercial assessments over time, but didn't complete it. To do it just within our office would be a 5 or 10 year project.
The school district would also benefit from the reevaluation, so they might be willing to share the cost.
That's right.
So, it sounds like in our upcoming 5-year plan, we will keep the property tax base increase at 1%. Everybody okay with that?
But we will then get together the analysis and the data that supports that.
We'll try to be a
For
little more
20.
scientific for 2020 and get some hard data to work with. Okay. Next item up is bonding. If you look at our 5-year plan, we don't have any new bonding until 2023. And please correct me on this, Mr. Marks, if I'm wrong. I didn't get a chance to check all this with you, but our current bond rate is 2.263%. And the question is, can we expect that to increase by 2023? And I think the answer is yes.
But within your 5-year horizon, if we don't go out the bond within your 5-year horizon, it's not going to affect the first 5 years. It'll just start affecting the out years, correct? And is that your understanding, Chamberlain? Or should we be concerned about it now?
Over the 5-year period before we actually go out for another serial bond issue, we're going to be financing short-term through bond anticipation loans. The rates on those, have been going up the same as they're converging with the long-term rates, which is not a good sign. That means rates are going up faster on short-term than long-term issues. So I'm thinking they're going to be 1.5%, so we better count on that.
1.5% for bands.
For short-term financing costs. 1.5 to possibly 2 when you're talking about a 5-year period.
Okay.
But 2.263 is the average of the last bond that we issued in November, the 8.9 million.
Okay.
But I think by 2023, that rate.
It's gotta go up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the good news is we got plenty of time to find out what that right number is. We don't have to do a bond again until 2023.
But you do have to look at your 5-year capital plans and how much Richard will have to go out for bands. Maybe you two could get together and come up with some sort of plan for that. So at least those year 2, 3, 4, and 5 numbers and the band costs and everything are as accurate as you're comfortable with.
Okay. Okay to move on? All right, healthcare. Let's see, for 2018, we set aside in our plan an additional $150,000 plus the add-on of 1% to the inflation rate. So the question here is, what do we foresee for the future of healthcare expenses? We've already agreed to increase the inflation add-on to 1.15% now. So my recommendation would be to add any additional money for unexpected healthcare expenses, at least for 2019. We're almost guaranteed that the cost of healthcare is going up. So we've taken a step in that direction by increasing the inflation add-on by 0.15%. Should we increase the additional sum of 150 to some other higher number? I think the answer is probably yes.
Richard, do you know off the top of your head where we stand right now in regard to, we're almost halfway through the year in regard to our healthcare expenditure?
Haven't looked.
Perhaps, maybe that's something that, I think when we meet next week, prior to our finance committee meeting, is that something that we might be able to?
I mean, say I haven't looked like today, so I can give you a number right now. but
Okay.
The April results show that the healthcare comparison was running, I think it was less than last year at this time, as far as actual cost. And when you, the question I have is, when you say 1% add-on for healthcare inflation, is that 1% of the healthcare total or 1% of the budget total?
That's just a 1% add-on to the rate of inflation to account for.
To the healthcare.
Higher healthcare.
Because when you say that, 1% of the general fund expenditure budget is 240,000.
No, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, I think he's looking at a 1% increase in what we've budgeted currently for healthcare expenses.
$60,000?
Is it?
No, the way that our 5-year plan works is that whatever we put in for inflation, you know, the amount of expenditures for the next year get increased by that amount. So that would be, as you say, for the entire general fund, not just for the healthcare expense.
We got 1% inflation, and then you say a 1% add-on for healthcare.
Yes.
So that's $480,000?
That's what I'm asking.
No, it's $240,000.
Well, so then that would just be 1%
For the
inflation?
healthcare,
Yes,
and the other 1% would be the total.
yes.
For the
I
total
would
of
agree with that.
healthcare.
$250 million a year going up on the healthcare? Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to do.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
We adjusted that budget in 18 to bring it up to, once again, I'm going from memory, 6.7, 6.8 million citywide.
Yeah.
And that's because we were under budgeted in 17 and in 16, because we had anticipated a lot of savings for the Medicare Advantage plan that never came to fruition.
Now,
so we're back to reality with those costs, and I think that, you know, if we throw $250,000 on top of it every year, budget-wise, I think that's wise.
okay, so.
That's about a 3.5 to 4% increase, sorry, Mike.
That's okay.
On our total healthcare budget, which has been our trend, with our self-funded costs. You know, the industry is like 10 to 11% increase in healthcare across the board, United States, the healthcare costs going up, but our trend has been like 3, 4, 5% on our self-funded costs. So, yeah, 3.5 to 4% add-on to the healthcare, meaning, you know, equating from 1% add-on for the whole budget of, say, general fund at 24 million. That makes sense.
Okay, so then, the next question is, we added an additional $150,000 above and beyond that, for our 2018 5-year plan. Do we need to do that again, same amount or more?
So then you're looking at a $400,000 increase.
480 plus 150.
No, 240 plus
240 plus 150. 390,000.
They're only adding the 1% in once, not twice.
Well, number 3 says add on another for the healthcare, right?
No, I think here that he's just repeating what he said earlier. It's just a 1% once.
Right. The 1% was a one-time thing, but
which would be 240,000, and then Mike's question would be, would we have to go through the same exercise as we did this year and put an additional $150,000 aside, which would bring it up to 390,000 increase?
So, I'd like to sum up what we're saying. We're increasing.
We're looking at a total increase of healthcare costs of 390,000.
Just on healthcare.
Yes.
The 150 plus 240 is just for healthcare.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so is there another 1% going on for the general fund budget?
No. We're looking at a sum of 390,000.
No.
You're saying a 3% inflation rate, and, you know, 3% on the expenditures, not the, it's on the labor rates too.
Yeah. I see your point.
3% of 24 million? 24, 48,
720,000.
Yeah, that's where I was getting at, 150 plus 240 plus 240.
Oh.
Okay.
So you're saying that $150,000 we set aside in 2018 was probably not enough for 2019?
Well, if you look at the 3.15% inflation rate and increase everything by that, I think you're covered there.
So if we did a 2% add-on for healthcare inflation and not the additional 150,000, we'd be at 480,000 for an increase.
Yeah, but are we using 3.15% inflation across the board to increase everything? Labor and contractual services? And
Yes.
benefits?
Yes.
So that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
That's 720,000, so why do you need these extra 150, 1%, and 1%?
Okay.
You know, just.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, I see exactly what you're
The numbers
saying.
would shake out, but
Right.
Yeah.
it seems like we're adding on a bunch here. If we're already assuming we got 3%.
Keep everything level playing field.
A high number.
Keep everything the same.
You know, the total city budget is $53 million. 3% of that's a lot of cash.
We're just talking about the fund, or the general fund at this point, right?
Well, 3% of the general fund would be $720,000.
Right. But that's got to absorb all the contractual increases, all the increased costs of materials, and the big one is the healthcare inflation, because it's typically about twice the rate of general inflation, at least elsewhere, sometimes 3 times the rate.
But our trend is between 3 and 4%. So I guess if we said, say 720 plus 150 plus 1% being another 240.
No, they're not adding the 1% that second time. It's
No,
just
I'm
the
just saying,
710.
Going based on the 3.15%, the 3%, whatever we're gonna use, that's 720 plus 150 is 870, and then another 240 for 1%.
No, for the
No,
doing
no.
the second 1%.
No,
Take
no,
off that
I'm just
third
talking
bullet.
about the top line, I'm not looking at the bottom line.
Right. I think those 2 bullets are redundant. It's the
I
same
think we
1%,
can
not
safely
twice.
say that 3.15% is a good number. We don't need any
Add-ons.
Add-ons, right.
Richard, why is our trend of increase on healthcare so much lower than the national trend? So because we're self-insured?
Partially, yeah, that's partly that, and, you know, we do have some good cost saving measures that we practice, believe it or not. You know, we get pharmacy rebates, we drive the cost of the drugs down. We don't do as much wellness management, which could save us some more money, but we do have a lot of aggressive programs for cost savings. And if you're in a premium-based plan, it's not just your experience, it's the whole community. It's like when Albany wanted to kick Plattsburgh out of the premium-based plans because Plattsburgh costs were higher than Albany's. Those plans were going up, well, we had to raise our rates 30% in 1 year on our HMO plans. And then it was time to get out of them because that 30% cost increase wasn't even close to what was indicative of our self-funded costs. So we got out of those plans. We got out of the traditional blue plan because they said we had to start looking at 15% increases in premiums annually because of the healthcare costs in the city of Plattsburgh in this area. And like I said, Albany didn't want to be rated with us anymore, which was keeping our rates down for premium-based plans. We got thrown out, and that's when the cost increases came, and that's where the self-funding method came into play in 2006.
Let me add one more dimension that might concern me. I think just with regard to healthcare inflation, maybe you're about there, but there's also the demographic effect, right? We're seeing more people retiring every single year, and until the baby boom that's gone through the pipeline, I think we're seeing higher expenses also because of the demographic. We're still paying for the retirees, then we're backfilling that position with a new person who's also now a new member of the healthcare plan. So just based on inflation, this is probably good, but based on demographics, I think maybe that's one of the reasons why we're finding it's just getting a little bit more expensive every year. And then the other thing we should factor in, and you and I talked about it a week or two ago, is the increased buyouts with more and more retirees every year. And we're starting to see that phenomenon, and every year we put in what we think is a little bit more than the previous year for buyouts, and then every year we seem to exceed that number a little bit. I think we're well on our way to exceeding it this budget year too. That's separate from this discussion, but something that you might want to do a little bit of
Right,
analysis.
it's definitely on our agenda, maybe not tonight, but definitely on our agenda.
So if that were the case though, I don't know, I might say that you've already got the 1% additional bump in the inflation rate to give the $240,000 just for healthcare inflation, but maybe it is prudent to have another 150 grand in there for the whole retirement effect, and having to pay for 2 people who are on healthcare, one now retired, and then the backfill for them for these next probably 5 or 6 years until we baby boomers are all retired out.
Okay. So council, then the recommendation is that we keep the 1% add-on for healthcare inflation and keep the additional $150,000. Is that acceptable? Based
You
on
think
our-
that's enough, Richard?
Yeah.
I see you over there kind of, your body language indicates otherwise.
I'm trying to remember the numbers in my head. 720 and 150. And is that it, or is there another 1%?
Not 720.
Yeah, 3%.
3% of
Oh,
the
3%,
total
right,
24
okay.
million, yeah.
Right.
Plus 150 is
Right, okay.
870. And if there's another 1% on top of that.
No,
No, no more 1%. The 3.15.
I'd like to have that extra 1 in there. But I'm very conservative about this.
You can contribute it then.
All right. I think it's a good start.
Okay. Now,
I mean, when you
also-
figure a 2% tax cap is only gonna get you what?
Mhm.
$200,000.
Yes.
Throwing 870 on this for budgeting is conservative.
Yes.
Plus the tax rate increase at 2%. That gets us over $1 million.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, which is firefighter arbitration. We think we're good with that. We set aside $525,000 in permanent long-term expense over the next 5 years. And what that amounts to is the raises that the firefighters will get when their arbitration is settled. And then $3.2 million over the next 5 years for one-time payouts, and that's to settle the arbitration from their past claims. So my recommendation is to keep those figures the same for our next 5-year plan, but we very closely have to watch that arbitration and see what the outcomes are and be prepared to adjust those if necessary. And that could mean adjusting them down as well as adjusting them up. But
I've been speaking with the chief. We still harbor some hope in restarting negotiations again. So hopefully we can do better than that. It's kind of, this is the status quo analysis. As you know, we've been doing these arbitrations every couple of years ever since the contract ended in 2011, was it?
Yes.
No, 2007 when the contract ended.
2 taking us through 2011.
So hopefully we can get off that path and onto a path of negotiated contracts with them. I'm hopefully optimistic that we can, but I think from a budget perspective, this is probably the most representative way to do it.
okay.
And even if we did negotiate something, it's still going to come out at some cost. It's probably not going to be dramatically different than this anyway. So.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions or concerns about those figures? All right. Then we have revenue additions. We don't need to know the exact figures tonight, but there are some opportunities to make revenue. Increased ambulance revenue, for example, turned out to be a good thing. And there some talk of the Imperial Dam project bringing in some revenue for the city. But I don't know where either of those stand, so.
Well, I think we still are collecting data on the ambulance revenue, but the chief has every reason to believe it's looking good. And if we did go into negotiations and could figure out a way to have a second ambulance, we'd want to do the analysis, obviously, to see what kind of revenue we would expect from that. But I'm hopeful with regard to the ambulance revenue. I'm less hopeful with regard to the Imperial Dam. I think it'd be highly speculative to put it in our budget at this point, unfortunately. But
You've got the possibility of the $47,000 for the small.
For the docks.
We haven't forgotten that, Andrew.
Good it out there.
Good sales pitch tonight.
It's an employee.
Yeah, it is, that's exactly it.
Anything else in the revenue stream? Okay.
We would like to, and I don't know how much this would really make a difference in the budget, but I do want to ask our permit issuing entities, the clerk's office and the building inspector's office, how our permit fee structure is compared to other municipalities. I don't imagine we'd be able to collect more than $10,000 or $20,000. And then we're on the verge, I believe we're going to have approved pretty soon that parking and city code enforcement officer. I want to make sure you all understand that it's not another code enforcement officer. They're not doing state building codes. They're just doing litter, sidewalk, snow removal, parking, etc. We haven't really looked at how much we could expect to generate revenue very firmly, but I wouldn't be surprised it's in additional revenue compared to what the police will already do with their ticketing. $50,000 to $100,000 more may cost us about $50,000, $60,000 for that employee. So there might be some additional revenue, perhaps $40,000 or $50,000 from that, which again is equivalent to one more job saved. And this is really significant.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we'll take all that into consideration and build it into the plan. And I think we're going to stop our meeting tonight at this point. I'm already way past the time I promised Dale we'd end.
Well, that wasn't a promise.
But next time we get together, we'll talk about payout for sick leave, accrued vacations, legal costs, and bans and bonds a little more. So count on that for being on the agenda next time.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Pete.
I'm looking at Tuesday.
That's good.
You can't
Sorry I
do
didn't come in early.
maybe Monday then?
Monday.
Takes me a while.
Richard.
Counselor Kelly, are you able to turn the recording off for me too? Or I can come over and do that.
Richard. Sure. Monday at 5, okay with you?
Monday at 5?
5 to meet with Mike and myself? Sure. We're all set, Mike, Monday?
At 5 in the morning?
5 a.m., yeah. I'm awake.
For you.
Mike, 5, Monday.
5 o'clock. Was it a voicemail, email?